You might agree with me by saying that when we think about AI, we think about California, Palo Alto, venture capitals, unicorns, and maybe even China. The narrative in the West is simple. AI equals US big tech firms plus Silicon Valley plus venture-backed startups. But if you look at who's actually using AI in the business, not just talking about it, but actually deploying operational, functional AI, the picture is more nuanced. Recent data from the European Investment Bank shows something surprising. European firms deploying GenAI are basically neck to neck with the US firms, 37 versus 36%. Not behind, not catching up, matched. And in some areas, especially among small and medium businesses, European companies are quietly doing something the US hasn't figured out yet, at least not fully. They are integrating AI into everyday work without the hype cycle. Hi, I'm Mauro, and today I want to show you why 2026 might be the year European companies stop asking, how do we catch up to Silicon Valley and American firms? And instead, start asking, how do we leverage what we're already doing better? Okay, let's get it started. So let me show you the numbers. So we don't have to talk about opinions, we just go into the data. First, the European Investment Bank surveyed thousands of firms across the EU and the US on GenAI deployment. The result, 37% of EU firms have deployed GenAI versus 36% of US firms. That's not experimenting with, not talking about, deployed. This shows that this isn't a gap, it's actually parity. Okay, now to be fair, US firms that do adopt AI tend to use it across more areas of their business than the European firms do. So while adoption rates are similar, the depth of the use differs greatly. But that's actually the part that I want to discuss with you today, because sometimes going deep in a fewer areas might beat sometimes going wide and shallow in AI implementation. On the other hand, Eurostat shows that about 13.5% of all EU enterprises have adopted at least one AI technology, and that's enterprises with 10 or more employees. So let's break that down. Of those 13.5%, 41 of them are large companies, 21 are medium-sized companies, and only 11% represent small firms. So you might ask, where are they using it for? Well, most of it is just text mining and data analysis, also some process automation, and some of them are starting to use it for customer service and quality control. So of course, these aren't flashy use cases, but they are quite functional and operational. Also, various studies, including OECD research, suggest that around 1/3 of SMEs, which stands for small, medium enterprises, in developed countries are using some sort of AI tool. And here, Europeans are heavily represented. And here is a key insight from this specific research that touches generative AI and SMEs. And of those, 39% think that GenAI helped them compensate for skill gaps. And actually, a similar percentage of them think that helped them with labor shortages and to reduce workload. This is clearly not a toy. It's not a marketing stunt. It's actually a workforce tool for companies that need some help. Now, let's look at the US side. The US Chamber of Data shows that 23% of US small businesses use AI by 2023. When you go to 2024, that's increased to 40%, and 2025, 58%. That's explosive growth. But also at the same time, US Census Business Trends data shows that some of the large US firms are showing declining AI tool usage in late 2025, dropping from what it was around 14% to 12%. And that's the first decline since the data has been collected. So then you might ask, why? Well, the data doesn't tell us directly, but the analysts point out to frustration with ROI, pilot fatigue, and high cooling off. These are interpretations, of course, not official statistics, but they are consistent with what we're seeing from expert commentary. So here the narrative is that the US did a massive experiment, and Europe is in the back quietly integrating AI into everyday work. So some people might ask, and maybe not Europeans, why is Europe doing this so differently? Well, there are some contextual things that leads to discipline and have more things in consideration. There are really structural things that when it comes to data, like GDPR, the EU AI Act, the data protection rules, that aren't just bureaucracy, that actually force companies to think about what is the data for, what are they using it for, how are they using it, and what are the risks. That discipline translates into more thoughtful implementation for EU companies. Additionally, European SMEs aren't just using AI to disrupt or move fast and break things. They are using it to handling probably common challenges that face in the region, like multilingual customer support, automating all the documentation and bureaucracy that they have in the back office, managing compliance and data protection rules, and fill up gaps that they actually just can't hire fast enough or they don't have the people for it. They are boring uses of AI, but they are durable use cases. And boring in this case helps them scale. So when we look at the distribution of AI implementation across the European continent, according to the EIV data and some other analysis, Germany and the Nordic countries are known for having the fastest and being the leaders when it comes to AI adoption in Europe. And why, we may ask? Well, some of them are known for having a strong digital infrastructure, and having high labor costs, and a culture of operational excellence that goes over the hype. The exact SME numbers may vary by metric, but the pattern is consistent. These markets prioritize integration over experimentation. So what does this mean for you? Well, if you are a European SME, I know the regulations and the whole EU framework might feel like a break, especially in a moment of high energy prices, tight credit, and not a lot of incentive for new business to be created and grow. But the service structure is quietly giving you something powerful: a disciplined, digital by necessity environment where AI can become the leverage instead of the debt. You can use AI to absorb skill shortages, high labor costs, and the kind of repetitive work that used to require a huge team or very expensive software. So then your real advantage is this. Inside that boring European framework, you can pick 2 or 3 core processes in your business, clean up the data, and make them ridiculously efficient with AI in a way that is compliant and sustainable over time. That's the win. And for the US startups and SMEs, 2026 won't be won by whoever has the craziest or more flashy AI demos, but by whoever quietly turns AI into infrastructure in sales, operation, and support, whether they are in Berlin, Barcelona, or Boston. And before we wrap up, I want to acknowledge something important. Although this video, I've been saying Europe and the US as if they were one thing only. And in reality, they are not. There are huge differences between countries, regions, states, especially between sectors and type of companies. Manufacturing, SME in Portugal, a hospital in Germany, and a SaaS startup in California do not live in the same AI reality at all. And the truth is that the data we have looked at, it's aggregated. It is a useful lens, for sure, but it's also simplification. It hides the gaps inside each economy. Sectors that are highly digitalized versus sectors that are still stuck in paperwork. High productivity firms versus those that are barely surviving. Companies that have data infrastructure versus those that are still running behind spreadsheets and WhatsApp. And that's the reality of this video. The point is that the conversation about AI adoption is often framed as who is winning, who is ahead, Europe or the US, China. But as it was a race that tries to get the first position in the global scoreboard. And I think a more useful question is, how do we use AI to reduce the gaps inside our own economies? Because the real opportunity is not just to copy Silicon Valley or hit some abstract adoption percentage. It is to use AI to unlock sectors that have been lagging for years because of production costs, bureaucracy, or the simple friction of doing businesses. Industries where compliance and paperwork eat half of the day. Public services that are overloaded but are still running on legacy systems. And small and medium businesses that could export, scale, or hire more if operations weren't so manual and expensive. Of course, this is one angle. I'm looking at this as someone who implements AI with companies every week, not as someone who is a macroeconomist. There are biases in the data, questions we haven't touched, from labor markets to regulations to ethics, and they actually matter. So treat this video as an invitation to go deeper, understand this in a better way, not just as the final word. So here's the bottom line. The chart doesn't really run your business, your processes do. So 2026, take it as something that is not about catching up in this year, but it's about leveraging of what we're already doing well and using this wave of AI to finally give a boost to the parts of the economy that have been left behind for too long. So don't ask, what AI tools should I try? What is the best way to implement this? But actually ask yourself, which of the core processes of my company I want to be the world best at 2026? And how can AI help me to get there? And if you're running a European SME and want to talk through where AI could give you an edge and advantage over your competition, also contact us. We are here to help, and we think we can make a huge impact in your company. That's all for today. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Bye.